in the first round.
I was okay with it. I mean, I feel like there really wasn't a perfect answer for Kansas City in round one. They could have done multiple different things, right? They could have traded up, they could have stayed put, or they could have traded out. And I thought that there were arguments that could have been made for any one of those options. Although, to your point, it didn't look like they had a whole lot of suitors to be able to do much of anything. And so, they stayed put at 31. They took Anyudike Uzama, which that's a really good hometown pick. Of course, the kid's from Kansas City, played at K-State. I get the emotional tie to it, but then also there's more to it than that. And we watched him over the course of his career at Kansas State, and he's got a great motor. He's a great athlete, and they needed help on the edge. And so I don't know if I had him as maybe my top overall edge rusher that was available in that moment, but I'm okay with it. I'm ultimately okay with that pick. I think that it's a good, fine, solid pick for Kansas City, and he's somebody that can play opposite of George Karlaftis for years to come.
Well, and it fits the mold of, right, they were in a position that they could take a risk there. And Felix, I guess, has a risk because of his size. A lot of people sent over that, he's the same size as Derek Thomas. And I'm like, well, that's, let's hang tight on that just a bit. But it is a good point. It is a good point that it doesn't, the size for me isn't a big deal. Paul was saying he was undersized, and I pointed out that he's got, Karlaftis has maybe an inch on him and about 8 pounds. So, if you like Karlaftis, so I like it because I think it was the appropriate high upside type pick that it sounds like they were kind of forced to make, Tom. Like, I think if they could have found an interested party, they probably would have liked to move up. I think they definitely would have liked to move back. But they didn't have either of those things. So what do you do then? You attack a position of need. If there is one, it was. And, again, from the very beginning, trust your own evaluation. And they evaluated, Felix Anyudike-Uzama probably higher than some others did. But they did that with Patrick Mahomes. They did that with – they've done it a lot. They've done that a lot. And I'm okay with that. Teams develop the ability to do that. And you just have to sort of say, you know what, they've done a good job of this in the last couple of years. I'm going to trust their scouts over mock drafters, right? Like, just because you didn't see Felix there doesn't really mean anything. Because, and I don't want to say this, in totality, but for the most part, we develop our opinions on players based on mock drafts, right? Like, most people aren't sitting and watching film or traveling the country like an NFL scout to go to these games, right, and evaluate these players. We see what we see in mock drafts, and we see draft coverage and a little film study. Probably the Chiefs, like most of us who have seen Felix Anyudike-Uzama play a lot of football over the last couple of years, maybe we are a little bit biased, but that can be an advantage too if it's the right player. So I was fine with it. I thought it was appropriate risk. I'm okay. I thought this was a draft that they could take a lot of risks, honestly. We've talked about that. They did it sort of again, although I think people liked Rashee Rice out of SMU. So we get to day 2, and we haven't talked about day 2. So now we get into it. And, they moved around. They ended up making 7 picks. They had 10 coming in. So they make 7. A lot of movement, a lot of trades, which happens all the time. No big deal. So Rashee Rice is a perimeter guy. I think he fits very nicely. I really like that pick. I think it's the type of player that can help them, but it's a type of player, Tommy, that helps them if you see positive, regression from Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney. Toney needs to stay on the field, and Sky Moore needs to take that next step. Then Rashee Rice fits in, and you're like, yeah, okay. Like, that's a interesting and nice group. He's not he's 6'2", 203. He's a big dude. And, it sounds like from what I've heard about him, he's kind of a, go up and get it, win on the outside kind of a receiver, which is exactly what they need because Toney and Sky Moore are your versatile Swiss Army knife type receivers. So I like the pick. I thought it was, again, the kind of receiver that they needed. And getting him in the second round is just fine with me. Then they go and they get a tackle. Wanya Morris, again, mixed reviews on him, but they've done a pretty good job evaluating linemen, right? And then they go the secondary 3 more times and 1 more defensive lineman. So they attack. We identified the positions, and that's all they drafted, all right? offensive line, defensive line, secondary, and wide receiver. That's it. That's all they ended up taking. So, I think as far as that goes, I love it, right? Those were the positions where they could probably get better, and those are the positions they attacked in the draft.
Yeah, I think that, if they had been able to trade up in the first round, it seemed to me that the way the draft board was falling, that a wide receiver was probably where they would have gone to if they were able to trade up into the early 20s or somewhere around there, because we saw a lot of those wide receivers come off the board around 20 to 23, 24. Quentin Johnston was there, and Zay Flowers, and, some of these other guys that it looked like Kansas City had quite a bit of interest in early on when we were going through the combine and workouts and all of that. When they stayed put with Anyudike Uzama in the first round, you thought, okay, wide receiver is probably going to come next. And Rashee Rice, I think, was a little bit under the radar for maybe the casual fan, maybe like hardcore, college football fans knew about him and knew about what he had done at SMU and the great senior year that he had for them. But there were a lot more flashy names at the wide receiver position rather than Rashee Rice. Not only in the first round, but in the second round too. I know Jalen Hyatt had fallen a little bit, and there were some Kansas City fans that thought that he would be a good fit too. Ultimately, they went up and got Rashee Rice in the second round. And if I remember correctly, they traded up to get him, right? Didn't they trade that second round pick to go a little bit sooner to go up and get Rashee Rice? So they must have really liked him.
They basically traded on all the picks after the first round.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
all but maybe one or two, but they were like four. It's so hard once they get through the first round to keep up with the trades. But yeah, they moved around a ton.
And, I think that tells you that there was clearly a priority at wide receiver. And with the loss of Juju Smith-Schuster, it makes you wonder if that Rashee Rice and his athleticism can sort of fill that role to an extent that Juju filled last year for Kansas City. So I understood that pick a lot. And then, of course, being able to get Wanya Morris, who not only played at Tennessee with Trey Smith, but of course also, went to Oklahoma and has that connection with Creed Humphrey. So that's a really good offensive line pick as well, because then you've got that familiarity with both Trey Smith and Creed Humphrey. And so I like that one too. And I feel like, yeah, to your point, and what you said is absolutely correct, that they addressed the areas where you felt like that was the greatest need in the first, second, and third round. Then they could have a little bit of fun after that and add some depth in other places. Of course, they were able to get another edge rusher. They got another offensive lineman. So really able to find that depth where they were able to in the later rounds.
Yes, I agree with that. And look, again, outside of the top two picks for me, I don't know much, if anything, about the other players. Wanya Morris is a name I recognize because he was at Oklahoma. And the rest of the way, I don't, Coburn kind of from Texas, right? So at that point, for me, it becomes trust their evaluators because their evaluators have done a good job. Totally okay with that. I thought their strategy, though, which I think is much easier to discuss than specific players, especially late in the draft, was a solid strategy. I would love to get a truthful answer and know if they wanted to trade up to get a receiver. I'd love to know the answer to that. We'll never get it, right? The GMs are not going to say, yeah, we really wanted this other player, but we kind of had to settle on Felix. Nobody's ever going to say that. But I'd love to know it. I'd love to know if they wanted to move up to go get somebody. There were rumors that they wanted to go up with the Cowboys, probably to take the player the Cowboys took, Mozzie, out of Michigan, because it would seem to be a player that was connected to the Chiefs a lot, even though he was an interior lineman, which is interesting. But the Cowboys, I guess, didn't want to trade because Cowboys really like the player. And the Cowboys are, as far as player evaluation, one of the best teams in the league right now over the last decade or so at doing that. So you're not getting Jerry to move if he likes a guy. That's just not going to happen. But they so the Chiefs are becoming one of those teams. Let's hope the trend continues. And there were two stories, Tommy, in that draft that stand out. One is Felix Anyudike-Uzama staying home, playing for the Chiefs. And the other involves another K-Stater, Deuce Vaughn. Going to the Cowboys. His dad's a coach there. I mean, are you kidding me? They're going to make a movie about that. Like, you cannot beat that. His dad gives him the call to come. And I was surprised to see Deuce Vaughn fall that far. I thought that was too far. And I get it. 5'5", undersized. I totally understand. But to go, and he was the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14th running back off the board. 14th running back. Now, if there was a bet you could make over at BetMGM, there's a bet you could make to say Deuce Vaughn will finish better or worse than the 14th best running back in this draft class, that there would be 13 others in this draft class that are more utilized in the NFL. That's where it's like that was too far for him. He's way better than that. 5'5", I get it. Deuce Vaughn is a playmaker. He, like, the other running backs that were taken early he's going to get used in a way like you might as well not call him a running back, right? And Darren Sproles is the obvious comparison, and he should be, because I think Deuce Vaughn's going to be used the same way. I think we're going to see him get to return a little bit. I think he's going to line up and be a gadgety type player. I think that he'll get plenty of reps as a back. And the Cowboys, who need that position, quite frankly, there probably isn't a better spot for Deuce Vaughn to land than Dallas. Dallas needs Deuce Vaughn. They needed somebody, and it's perfect to have that one there. That's fantastic.
I'm happy for him. I'm happy that he got that opportunity, and I'm happy that he had the chance to, go and play in a place with an organization where his dad is employed. I mean, that's really cool. And watching what he did during the course of his career at Kansas State, I too am surprised that he fell as far as he did. I kind of had him projected maybe in the third or fourth round. Third might have been a little bit too high, but probably fourth round was kind of where I thought that he might have gone. The fact that he fell all the way to the Cowboys in the sixth round, I think that's a little too much for him. I think teams were clearly concerned about his size overall. But man, with the fact that, we follow them and we cover them pretty regularly here, watching him play throughout college, I mean, the guy is incredible and was a great running back. And, so I thought that was a little bit egregious that he fell as far as he did. I think he'll have a nice career in Dallas. I don't exactly know, and you're the Cowboys fan, so you know more than I do about that. I don't exactly know how they plan to utilize him alongside Tony Pollard, if he's going to be a change of pace back. If
they want to run the ball,
I'll
tell you, they want to run the ball. And that's, again, like, they don't have a ton at that position, and they need weapons on offense. They lost their tight end. They traded Amari Cooper. They're not, I won't say they're starved for offensive playmakers, because that's a bit of a stretch, but
they've got CeeDee Lamb, they've got Tony Pollard, they've got Michael Gallup,
and Pollard's hurt, right? Pollard had a bad injury late to end his season, late in the year last year. I'm telling you, like, I was trying, when I saw that, I was like, God, could there be a better team for him? Like, that could use him more right in this moment? There aren't many that could. Because you don't want to see Deuce Vaughn, number one, he's not going to go somewhere and be like a 3-down back. That's not going to happen, at least not right out of the gates. And I don't know that that's the best, I don't know that that's a scenario we'd even want to happen with his frame in the NFL. But it's like, who could use him, right? Like, who could really utilize his skill set? And there aren't many teams. Kansas City would have been one, honestly. But there aren't many teams that are a better fit than Dallas, just by need for the team that drafted him. And obviously his dad and the staff there is going to know how to utilize him and be as familiar with his skill set as you can be. And it'll be interesting, right? Like, his intangibles and his measurables, not just size, but speed and elusiveness, whatever. It isn't all, you had to watch him play, right? Like, he's kind of like Felix Anudike-Uzomah. You kind of had to just watch him play to see, like, what that is, but that translates, like, that whatever translates. Being a gamer, being smart, hard work, that stuff all translates too, which will help him. But I would have liked to see him go earlier, certainly. But as far as where he went, selfishly, obviously, I'm a Cowboys fan, so I think that's cool. But just in general, in reality, for him, the player, that's really good. So you had those two. Let's take a quick break, Tommy, as we continue to dig into the draft. And we'll get to some of the bigger, national storylines in it as well. But those are 2 of 4 K-Staters that go in this draft. And 2 of them went high. So what does that mean for the program? Pretty cool stuff. We'll get into it as we make our way through Sports Daily. The IHOP hotline always open for you. 869-1240 is that number to call. Also, we just got this in this morning, so we're excited for this. Our first giveaway of the day. How about winning a trip to see Guns N' Roses at a U.S. stop of your choice on their 2023 World Tour, including round-trip airfare, hotel tickets, and a $200 gift card? All you have to do is go to kfhradio.com to enter for the chance to win that national contest. Again, so you can win that trip to see Guns N' Roses. kfhradio.com has all the details. We'll have some other giveaways to give away directly here on the show as well today. Glad to have you guys with us at Sports Daily on a Monday, reacting as we speak now to the NFL Draft. We'll do more of that when we return on Sports Daily.
869-1240.
Time to get busy.
This is Sports Daily on KFH.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Sports Daily, KFH, Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. Glad to have you with us, either on the air at KFH, where you've got the IHOP hotline, 869-1240, or on our video stream, which we are now in about week 2.5 on. You can always find that on our KFH YouTube page, KFH Facebook page, and on Twitter as well. So glad to have you with us. You can comment on the show there. You can call the IHOP hotline. All right, Tommy, we're getting into the NFL draft, just sort of scratching the surface at the local appeal of it. And nobody from Kansas was selected. So then we go to K-State. And looky here. By the way, before we get into this, just one quick note of a local, signing. You had a player out of Indiana, out of Garden City. So that was about all we got on the local level. But as far as the draft goes, you had Kansas State with 4 players selected. Julius Brents ends up going after Felix Anudike-Uzomah. Our buddy Tim Fitzgerald, our K-State insider, wondered if Brents would be the first to go. It was Felix. And then Brents goes in the 2nd round to the Colts. And then Josh Hayes goes to the Bucks in the 6th round. And then you get Deuce, as we mentioned there, in the 6th round as well. 4 players drafted from Kansas State, Tommy. That's pretty dang good.
Yeah, I don't think that you could ask for anything better than that for the Wildcats. It's a testament to, the way that program has grown over the years and what Chris Kleiman has done. We knew that, those 4 players were going to be the 4 players that more than likely were going to be drafted by from the Wildcats. We just didn't exactly know in what order and, when they were going to go. But I think that overall, we talked about Deuce falling to the 6th round. That's difficult based on his size and his position. So, while I think we're disappointed that he went all the way in the 6th round, I think that you can understand a little bit of the hesitation from teams around the league. But the other guys, man, like that, I think that just shows you how talented that defensive unit is. It was this last season for Kansas State. I mean, there's a reason why throughout the course of the college football season, you and I were having conversations last year about how dominant that defense was at times. And I think at times played like the best defense in the entire Big 12. And I think that, the fact that you've got Anudike-Uzomah and Hayes and Brents being drafted where they were, I think it proves that.
So just, for elsewhere in the Big 12, just for everybody's record keeping, Texas had 5, Oklahoma had 5, and then it's Kansas State. I think Baylor had 2, Baylor may have just had 1. Oklahoma State, I think, had 2. Iowa State had 3. And
TCU had several. TCU had, of course,
well, and TCU was going to.
Max
TCU
Duggan
always does.
Yeah.
But TCU, and I didn't even see where Duggan went. Where did Duggan go?
He went to the Chargers with Johnston. I think he went in the 6th or 7th round.
That's really interesting. He did. TCU had the most in the Big 12, by the way. It wasn't close. 2, 4, 6, 8 out of TCU. And Duggan was a 7th round pick. He was right there at the end of the draft, but pretty cool spot for him. They actually took another TCU. The Chargers did, as I'm looking at their draft. They took 2 TCU receivers. They took Darius Davis also, and then took Max Duggan. Okay. But so for Kansas State, and TCU was going to out of this class, and I'd have to really dig into how many of these guys were some of those, that really talented group of transfers that came in, right? Because they had so many of them. But, for Kansas State to slot right in there after those guys, that matters, man. That means something, I think, especially when we talk about, the portal, when we talk about what could be coming next year. I don't think that they'll have that many drafted next year, but as we look long term, right, I think it matters. And it all becomes about Will Howard pretty much next year, right? And how much can they elevate him as far as profile for the program. But to have 4 this year out of a Big 12 championship, I think that stuff matters. I think it matters to recruits. I think it matters in the transfer portal especially. But it matters, I think, too, Tommy, to validate where we probably think Kansas State sits nationally but maybe people around the country are going to be slow to, and probably always going to be slow to, depending on what Avery Johnson does, right? Like people will always probably kind of forget about Kansas State. Now, Avery Johnson's the kind of player that could change all that. But this stuff matters. I'm really happy for that program. These are guys that, put in the time, were stars at K-State that now get the chance. K-State has a long history of having really good players in the NFL anyway. But I think this stuff does matter. And I think it matters to the program, and it'll be good long-term for Kleiman and staff.
I think so too. And I know that, they had that national profile in the Sugar Bowl against Alabama. But even then, remember the narrative was Alabama taking on little old Kansas State, right? Like that was the narrative
Kind of played out
when that
way.
game happened, right? And so I think that, the more that you've got players that are being drafted, at the level that they are, like Anyudike Uzama and Brents and so on and so forth, the more that you're going to be able to, get that national reputation of being a solid program. And, I think to your point, you mentioned they might not have the number of players next year, drafted that they had this year. That was a really special team with the Big 12 championship and all of that. But if you're able to build some consistency with not just, the postseason play, but also the players that you're getting ready to take to the next level, that are getting ready to go to the NFL draft, Will Howard, you hit the nail on the head right there. Will he be an NFL caliber quarterback? That's going to be the big question. I don't know the answer to that.
He looked like one. He looked like one last
year.
year.
He did at times. Yeah, for sure. I don't know if he looked that way consistently. That's going to be the big question. So can the Kansas State staff and Colin Klein and Chris Kleiman develop him to a level to where there's an NFL team that would want to draft him? It happened with Skylar Thompson. It didn't happen with Adrian Martinez. He was only there for a year, though.
No,
he did sign an undrafted deal.
That's because of Will Howard. I mean,
right. So
remember, Adrian Martinez was like a closet Heisman candidate there for just a minute until he got hurt. Like after he started slow and then he went on that tear, and then Will Howard came in and sort of took over. And then Will Howard, to me, like watching what's hard. The only thing that's hard about Will Howard, to think about him as a pro, is his career before last year. But if you just took last year, you're like, oh my God, this guy looks like a pro, right? Like if you can erase anything that happened before last year, this guy looks like a pro. He's huge. He's got control. He moves around well, like all those things. So yeah, he is a fascinating player, and probably the best thing that could ever happen to Adrian Martinez, by the way. Adrian Martinez, to Avery Johnson. Because it takes the pressure off of Avery Johnson, who does look like a special player. And maybe they can still use him just a bit. But Will Howard looks the part. And that probably, extends a K-State window, because they got a lot of questions next year with the, they just had 4 players drafted. And those are big losses, right, for any team to overcome outside of the factories that exist right now. But good for Kansas State. Kansas on the way, I hope. They didn't have anybody drafted this year, but I think over the next couple, they certainly will. Tommy, let's look else. Let's talk about the first round. I guess we don't have to dig into much else outside of the first round. Will Levis would be the only other storyline really outside the first round, I think, that was just like jumping off the page at us. But what do you think of the quarterbacks that went? Levis ends up going round 2 at 33. Hendon Hooker fell pretty far. And the other 3 go about where we think they'll go. But it was pretty much, all that Levis talk didn't really pan out. And he falls. Tennessee, we thought might take him in the first round. They get him in the second. They feel good about that, right? It was historically, though, a quarterback-heavy draft. There were a ton of quarterbacks taken. But the top end of the class that we talked about, those 5 players, right? Hooker falls all the way to the 3rd round for Detroit, which makes a ton of sense and feels like a pretty good spot for them. But everybody outside of Bryce Young here feels like a team took a little bit of a risk. Houston, were they going to take a quarterback? Well, they did, and they still got Will Anderson, but they, hitched their wagon to CJ Stroud, who will certainly, I think, have a chip on his shoulder after all the chatter, even though he went number 2 overall. And then the most intriguing quarterback of the group is Anthony Richardson. Now at Indianapolis, a place where he doesn't have to get rushed into play, despite what Jim Irsay says. I cannot imagine that they will thrust him in there right away. But that's a pretty good spot. I think, honestly, all of these quarterbacks, again, in those top 5 that we've been talking about, all of them landed in a good spot, I think. Like, I think those are good spots for all of them to be able to succeed.
I think so too. I think that all 5 of those quarterbacks are in positions that, they can have a lot of success. Now, I don't think that this is necessarily going to be like 2004 when you had Roethlisberger and Manning and Rivers. Was it Rivers?
No.
That was the other one.
Yeah.
All 3 of them, had great careers and
Be
played
Hall
for a
of
long
Famers.
time. Hall of
Yeah.
Famers. Like, I'm not sure that I want to go that far and say that all 5 of them are going to have, long-term flourishing NFL careers, because that rarely, if ever, happens. But I think there's a good chance that maybe 3 of the 5 have really solid and long-term NFL careers. So that wouldn't surprise me one bit. I know that there was all of this speculation and drama about what was going to happen with the number 1 pick and where the Panthers really sold on Bryce Young, or were they going to go a different direction last minute. There were even some folks that were speculating Will Levis could jump all the way up to number 1. At the end of the day, though, it was all misdirection. It was all smoke and mirrors. The Panthers got the guy that I think they were in on the entire time. I don't think that there was any sort of, there might have been some conversations about Stroud and Levis and Richardson, but ultimately,
I'm with you.
It was Bryce Young all along. If you're making that trade for the number 1 pick, you know who your guy is, and they were pretty solid on that, I would think, from day one.
I do too. I think, but he's in a good spot, right? So Bryce Young and CJ Stroud were the 2 guys that you felt like have the best chance to just go in and start right now, I think. And they landed in the 2 spots that those teams are sort of banking on them to do that. Neither team, to me, even though they picked at the top of the draft, obviously Carolina traded into that spot. Neither of those teams, I think, next year are going to be like the worst teams in football. Houston, that might be a bit of a stretch to say, but I don't think they will be. So you've got those, and those are pretty good spots, right? Pretty good situations. You feel decent about it. So, okay, you've got that. And then you get the other guys of the 5 that we talked about. Richardson, to me, again, I know Jim Irsay said he wants him to play right. I don't think that Richardson's under any pressure to start in the first 6 games of the year, right? Like, there's just no need to do that with him. And his upside, his ceiling is the highest, right? He's this monster with a cannon that can run faster than most receivers on the field, but they've got Gardner Minshew there. And there's just no pressure to start Richardson right away. And that's a good thing. I mean that in a positive way. Will Levis, sort of the same thing, right? Like, there's no pressure to just cram Will Levis out there. I know a lot of people have him the highest. Time will tell. And I get why. Again, huge, fast, big arm, all that stuff. That's good. And then Hendon Hooker, who... Listen, there are a lot of people that said they think that Hendon Hooker was the best quarterback in this class, and in a good system could be really successful. There is absolutely no pressure on Hendon Hooker, right? Jared Goff's fine. Jared Goff is an average to good NFL quarterback. There's no pressure to play Hendon Hooker this entire season. And so I like all those spots, because what I want to see happen with any college quarterback is them to succeed. I want the NFL to have as many good quarterbacks as it can possibly have. So to have all these guys get into spots where I think they can be successful, I'm in. I'm happy about that. Eddie comments on our video stream on Facebook that he went to the Thursday portion of the draft, and it was awesome. I'm glad to hear that, Eddie, because it looked awesome. The backdrop was perfect. The fountain, all the facilities, the sea of red, like it was phenomenal. And I imagine just a major boon for Kansas City and the region. So congrats if you were able to make it up. Hope you had a great time, whether it was Thursday or Friday or Saturday into the weekend. Just a fantastic NFL draft. Really good stuff there. We'll get back into the draft in the second hour. We'll continue here on Sports Daily. Lots of other stuff happening. We've got Wichita State baseball and softball to update you on. We got NBA playoffs with some drama and cool things happening. All kinds of good stuff. We'll continue with Sports Daily, some giveaways when we come back. Keep that IHOP hotline handy. Your chance to win a prize coming up right after this. All right, welcome back, everybody. Sports Daily on KFH. Glad to be here. Let's set you up here with a chance to win Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 tickets for a Thursday sneak peek. That's this week, 7 o'clock, Thursday at Boulevard Theater in Town West Square. We'll do that for the first caller right now to the IHOP hotline, 869-1240. Pair of tickets, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 sneak peek. Good luck, everybody. Thanks for joining us on the air here. Also on our video stream, which you can find on the KFH Facebook page, KFH YouTube page, and Sports Daily Twitter page. You can also go back, by the way, podcast everything that you hear on the Odyssey app. Lots of different ways to take in the program. We appreciate everybody. Let's start softball here. The AAC regular season champions, Tommy, they get that locked up. They continue the win streak right now. They get one more game against Kansas this week before they get ready for the conference tournament. And just confirmed, we should have Sydney McKinney on the program tomorrow, first hour. So we're excited about that. But Wichita State softball keeps going. They're number 19 in the rankings now. We'll see if that has a chance to get much better before. But all they can do is keep winning, and we cross our fingers that they can host a regional, Tommy. But, congratulations to them. Their 43rd win of the season this year. Just continue to be awesome, and we love it, and they're great, and they're just sort of the banner carriers right now for the university.
Sorry about that. They didn't have their best stuff over the weekend, and that's for sure. At least on Sunday they didn't against Tulsa, but they found a way to win, and so it's really impressive with what they've been able to do so far this season. And of course, if you have a checklist on all the things that you're crossing off, all the accomplishments and the achievements as the year goes on, that outright conference title, that's number one. That's done. You don't have to worry about that. You've got an outright conference championship now, and now you can focus on continuing to win, continuing to play great, and hopefully getting enough quality wins as you move forward to be able to get in that consideration for a home regional. So I like the fact that they're kind of going down that checklist, right? And crossing things off, one by one. It's great that we're going to have Sydney McKinney on the show. I think she moved into sixth place all time in hits in Division I college softball history, which is awesome. And the season's going to roll on. So I think she's got a chance to continue to move up in that ranking. And so, there's really nothing more that you can say. No more accolades you can give them. They're continuing to just prove it on the field, game in and game out.
It's been so awesome, and congratulations to them. Over on the other side, Wichita State baseball, you heard them right here on KFH over the weekend. Tommy, they just continue to play well. They didn't get it against Kansas before the Memphis series, lost it in extra innings, but then they come in and they take 2 out of 3 in the conference, right? And, you just got to keep winning conference series, and they continue to win a ton of games. They were on a nice win streak before the Kansas game. It's there for them. And I don't know if they'll be able to get their RPI high enough, but they've got a lot of games to get there, and they remain right there with Houston in a first place tie in the American Athletic Conference in the standings right now. And say what you want, but it's one more week where they're sitting there, and that's all we can hope for. They're still a game ahead of East Carolina. Cincinnati's on the prowl. Everybody's within striking distance, we'll say. They did some damage to Memphis there, but ahead of Memphis are 3 teams at 6 and 9 that they're 4 games ahead of, and then East Carolina and Cincinnati are right on their tail. But if they can continue to win these series, Tommy, they're going to have a chance. Which, by the way, they go to Houston next. That's a clearly just a monster series for them. But they have 3 conference series left. If they can continue to just win the series, I think they're going to have a really good chance to be at the top of the AAC at the end. It may take a sweep. I don't know. But they're doing what they need to do. I thought they might be able to get the sweep of Memphis. They didn't. That stinks, but it's okay because you win the series. I think that's how you still have to approach it if you're Wichita State. And then hope that you show up in these midweeks to maybe improve the RPI standing too. But how nice has this been? Wichita State baseball is very much relevant. And, they're fun. They've got some fun players to watch. And this is a great spring on campus there for the softball and baseball teams collectively, as good as we've had.
What's really fun about the baseball program is that not only do you have the individual performers like Peyton Tolley and Kite McDonald and, others, they're actually winning. So it's not like you're just looking at these guys that are putting up great numbers and they're fun to watch, but they're not winning games. Like, no, they're performing individually and they're performing as a unit. Man, I'll tell you, I certainly didn't see this level of success coming this season from this program. But here we are. We'll take it and we'll continue to ride with it.
Yeah, I love it. It's been fun and it'll continue, and you'll hear Shocker games right here on KFH, the baseball team, as always. And again, Sidney McKinney coming up tomorrow on the program. So Shocker softball fans will have some fun with Sid the Kid. Her historic season continues. All right, we'll come back. More Sports Daily. We'll jump back into the draft. We'll talk a little about the NBA playoffs, everything else happening in the sports world. The Royals still not winning any games. If you want to go there, we can. But, that's we'll see how they go. All right, we'll be back. Sports Daily Hour number 2 coming right up.
Laugh Out Loud Mornings with Bob and Tom on 97.5 and 1240 KFH, Wichita's most listened to sports radio. Always live on the free Odyssey app.
Maximum Outdoor Equipment and Service is growing and ready for mowing season. Come see our new location at 21st and Andover Road or visit Kellogg and West Street. Mowing season is easier with the productivity of a Walker mower from Maximum Outdoor. Walker mower's compact design for easy maneuvering, out front deck for trimming, and variety of attachments helps maintain a healthy lawn. Test drive a Walker mower at Maximum Outdoor's newest location, south of 21st and Andover Road, or south of Kellogg on West Street, or MaximumOutdoor.com.
Maximum Outdoor Equipment.
Ready Appliance Repair fixes all brands of major appliances. Service is typically provided same day. If you have a problem with a refrigerator, washer, dryer, oven, or dishwasher, don't worry, call Ready.
Call 491-5111. Call Ready.
Summarize your home. Ready offers expert service for sprinkler systems, air conditioning, fencing, retractable awnings, and more. For expert home service, don't worry, call Ready.
That's 491-5111. Call Ready. Call Ready. Plumbing won't drain and your sewer's not flowing, don't worry. Call Ready. Your AC's not full and your furnace is old, don't worry. Call Ready. Be there in a flash, your problem won't last. There's no overtime, so call anytime. Call 491-5111. Call Ready. That's 491-5111. Call Ready.
I'm attorney Gary Patterson. In the Patterson Legal Group, we handle personal injury cases every day. This doesn't mean that we treat you like a number. We know that your case is special. You have specific needs, concerns, and questions.
I'm attorney Tyler Patterson. When you hire us, we dedicate a team of professionals to handle your case from start to finish. We strive to treat you like family. Why Patterson Legal Group? Because family matters.
Cards issued by Sutton Bank and Celtic Bank, members of FDIC. Terms and conditions apply. Are you the decision maker in your company? Consider this. For the first time in decades, there's a better option for a corporate card and spend management platform. Meet Ramp, the only corporate card and spend management system designed to help you spend less money so you can make more. Most corporate credit cards offer points as incentives, but those points amount to less than their worth in real cash value. Ramp's business cards offer you cash back, real money in your pocket. Plus, you control who spends what with each vendor. And Ramp software collects and verifies receipts automatically, which means you'll stop wasteful spending and close your books in hours instead of days. Businesses that use Ramp add up to 3.5% to their bottom line the first year. If you're a decision maker, adding Ramp could be one of the best decisions you've ever made. And now get $250 when you join Ramp. Just go to ramp.com/sports. 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 Toppers Plus Truck Accessories has moved to a new location at 333 Northwest Street. We're ready to hook you up for trailer season, whether you're towing your boat, cycle, RV, or lawn equipment. Toppers Plus has receiver hitches, goosenecks, fifth wheel hitches, brake controllers, and trailer wiring. Choose from top brands like B&W hitches made in Kansas or Reese curtain and draw type. Hitches matter. Get trailer season ready at Toppers Plus. New location, 333 Northwest Street or toppersplusks.com.
Make the job work for you!
The KFH Studios, powered by Devon James Injury Lawyers. Call 888-8888. That's 888-8888.
just a quick with Big Duo. The NFL draft has come and gone, and the Super Bowl futures market is in turmoil. Add in Aaron Rodgers signing with the Jets, Lamar Jackson coming back to the Ravens, and the favorites will change dramatically. Now is the time to do some research on the futures market and take a bet now, because you'll likely get the best odds in the week following the draft before the dust has settled. Personally, I like the Baltimore Ravens to make the playoffs at plus 185 and sprinkle them to win the whole thing at 22 to 1. I'm just a Crick, helping you keep the books.
For the ones finding new ways to ensure the job always gets done. For the ones wearing many hats.
Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. This is Sports Daily on Wichita's #1 sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Sports Daily on KFH. It's Albracht and Castor. Glad to be with you here today on the program. Tommy, how was Florida? Tommy was gone last week. Just, soaking up the sun, enjoying life. Everything, I'm sure, went perfectly and according to plan.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything was pretty much good. It was a trip. It was the first time we'd been away from our son for that long a time. Like, he stayed with the grandparents. We kind of had a little bit of a mom and dad getaway. We're having another baby in June. And so it was kind of like I guess they call it a baby moon, I think is what the nice term is for what we did. But yeah, we went to Destin, Florida for a week. The weather was actually really good. We had like one day of rain, but other than that, it was perfect. And I'm the kind of vacation guy. I think we talked about it before. You and I are a little bit different. Like, I just want to sit on the beach all day long and do nothing every day. And I know for you, it's kind of like, let's go and do something.
That's good for me for about 10 minutes. And then I'm over.
No, I did it all day, like every day. And it was amazing. And I loved it. And I wanted nothing different than that.
Man, my brain just does not work that way. Like, I can't. It's my problem. It's like, I understand it. I have the problem. I'm not and I never knew I had this affliction. Like, I think the only way that I can, and this is even hard now because I don't really do it much anymore. The only way I can sort of just like sit and do that, where I'm not really doing anything else, is like playing a video game, which, a long time ago, that was something that was fun. Now I don't do that a ton. Maybe I do it with my kids because they're kind of into it, which has sort of been like, oh yeah, I remember why I like this so much, because I can veg out. Reading a book, I can do that as well. And I need to do that more often. But most of the time when I'm sitting still like that, all my brain does is say, what work could I be getting done right now? Like, what could I be doing right now? Like, which of the jobs could I go and attack something, whether it's TV or this show or the 2 stores at HDO? It's like, what could I do there? And if I sit on the beach like that, that's what happens. And so then I'm just like on the beach checking emails. If I'm out doing something, it gets a little easier, right? Like, if I'm actively doing something, I don't get those idle hands as much. It's funny. We've had visitors here last 3 weeks. We had my in-laws and then my parents and then some friends this past weekend. So like, my Hank Hill has been itching a little bit. So yesterday we got people out and 30 bags of mulch, and like, I just can't be like, all right, now let's calm, let's relax. No, it was like, all right, let's go get all this other stuff done. So I'm happy for you on the beach. If you're watching our video stream right now, it's pretty clear which one of us has been sitting on the beach for a week and which one of us has not. But look, I've had my first like 2 sunburns already this year. But it doesn't work for me that way. Like, why am I not bronzed like Tommy right now?
I was really glad that I actually got a sunburn a few weeks ago and I got the first one out of the way. That way I could be ready for the Florida trip, because I had this thought in the back of my mind, like, if my first sunburn of the year is in Florida, it's going to be a doozy. It's going to be a bad one. I'm going to be in pain for a while. You get that first one out of the way and you peel and you do all of that, then you're pretty good. At least I am, for the rest of the summer. Like, I'll get sunburned, but it won't be nearly as bad as that very first one. I'm glad I got it out of the way here on one of those like nice Saturday afternoons we had a while back. And then I was able to actually kind of enjoy Florida and not really worry about, having 3rd-degree burns all over my body.
Yeah. And look, wear sunscreen, right? That's not this time of the year is pretty hard with sunscreen, because it doesn't feel like the time of year you should have to do it. Like in the summertime when you're hot and sweaty, it's just like a foregone conclusion, right? Like you just have to, douse it up in sunscreen when you go. It doesn't feel like it should be that way in the spring. And so I always pay the price in the spring, because it's like, I was just out at soccer games for 3 hours and I didn't put on any sunscreen. And then I'm fried. And that's happened, I think, at least twice now already this year. NBA playoffs in full swing. We are on now to the second round. We finished up yesterday with the Warriors and Kings. And, Steph Curry does Steph Curry things, and it's awesome. 50 points on the way to getting the win and setting up a rematch with LeBron James. And you've got this storyline developing, and man, I love it. I think, and no offense to the Kings, because I think their story is cool and I hope their arrow stays pointed up. I do have money on the Warriors, so there's that angle of it. But I am really happy that we get Steph, LeBron at this, I don't even want to call it the twilight of their careers, but that's what it sort of is. I don't want to call it that because they're both still so good. But we get it again, right? And that is a really awesome thing, in my opinion, to have going. You get a Heat Knicks series that has some history, right? And here come the Heat again with a game 1 win as the 8 seed. Bring that on. And then tonight we get the start of the 76ers Celtics series, which for a lot of people is the NBA Finals. And then you get the Suns Nuggets, and the Nuggets just keep quietly winning as the 1 seed that nobody's talking about. But here we go, Tommy. NBA playoffs now, like this is go time. This is where they're really good. I like all of these series, and I think they're all really interesting.
I don't know. I was really, really, really hoping that Sacramento could get it done.
I know.
Nothing at all against Golden State. Like, what they've been able to do over the course of that dynasty. And, Steph Curry has got to be probably top 10 of all-time greatest NBA players.
I
just
think that's
remarkable.
Fair. Yeah.
Remarkable, 50 points in game 7. And you kind of had an idea that might happen. And there was another game earlier in the series when the Kings were up, and we talked about, well, this is probably going to be a Steph Curry game where he's going to be able to come in and take over. And he did. And then he took over game 7. It's predictable. I get it. I understand the way that Golden State is. I understand Warriors basketball. I was ready for the Kings to try to take him down and move on and maybe be done with that storyline a little bit, or at least like have it be done for this season. But that's not the case. And I get Steph Curry and a heroic effort from him in game 7 to move the Warriors on. And here we go. We've got Warriors, Lakers. We've got 38-year-old LeBron James and 35-year-old Steph Curry going at each other. So that storyline will be fun. It'll be fun to watch. But man, I was hoping the Kings could get it done.
But it's a different storyline, I think, really for both of those guys. And I know they're two different things, but they each have championships, right? Like where they currently are. But I think it's two totally different storylines now than what I don't want to say grew up with, but what we've had lately, right? Like now you have LeBron James and this Lakers team where this to me sort of feels like when like early Cleveland LeBron, when the team around him wasn't spectacular. Now they have Anthony Davis there, but he's I don't even know that you'd still call him a star player. Just based on availability.
He can't stay on the court. I mean, he's
that's what I mean
out there.
So you've got LeBron who shouldered the load, And you've got throwback Warriors the last couple of years, right? Because you had the beginning Warriors to Splash Brothers. Then you threw Kevin Durant in the mix, and nobody was ever going to beat them healthy. And now Durant's gone, which is a part of another nice story, by the way. But now you've got like the old school Warriors. So you almost have, it's like old school Warriors and old school LeBron going head to head in this series with, you know, a player that's in the mix to beat wherever you would rank him, anywhere from like number 1 to number 5 in LeBron. And I think top 10 is fair for Curry based on the impact on the game that he's had. Like, I don't know if you took like an all-player, all-time NBA draft, if Steph Curry's going in the top 10, but when you consider what he's done and the impact on the game he's had, he absolutely would be there. So I'm with you on that. But you don't get that often. And you don't get it when it's got a nostalgic factor right now, like it does with LeBron versus the Warriors. It has that nostalgia to it. And I just like, what a nice, way to really lock into the NBA playoffs. If you didn't in the first round, which I think a lot of people and most people did, because we had some good basketball in the first round, but I think we're going to get great basketball all the way through with these teams remaining. I think, if you didn't believe it in the first round, you believe it now. Like, any of these teams are capable of winning a title, even Miami, who proved that they can go out and beat everybody's favorite. So I don't know how you don't consider them a team right now that could go win the NBA title. I mean, you have to. They won game 1 against the Knicks and they just beat the Bucks. How could you not say Miami could win a title? Nobody's that great that they could not overcome. So it's perfect. Like, this is a
playoff Jimmy Butler. Playoff Jimmy Butler. I mean, give me a break.
Man.
Like, the guy was
Killer.
phenomenal. He looks like the best player in basketball when the playoffs come around. But going back to the topic about the Lakers and the Warriors and LeBron and Steph, to me, and I don't know if this is an unfair comparison, and you tell me if you think it is. I think that when you're going to watch a series that's got LeBron taking on Steph Curry, it reminds me at least a little bit of the Lakers Celtics finals, not the early ones, but when Magic and Bird were a little bit older in their careers, like late 80s, kind of, where they were kind of at the tail end of what they were doing, but they were still battling back and forth. And you had Magic and Bird in the finals. It's kind of what this reminds me of a little bit with LeBron and Steph. Like, they're different types of players, obviously, but just their impact, they're legends, they're icons, and they're going to be battling it out again. And so to me, I think you can kind of draw that comparison. I don't know if that's unfair or not, but that's kind of where I put it.
Yeah, I didn't, that rivalry existed in my lifetime, certainly, but I was too young to truly appreciate it. There have been great basketball rivalries over the years. These two, head to head are probably as good as we've had in our, close to 40 years of, life. I don't know that we truly appreciate it now. And maybe, I think younger people probably do. I think younger people probably do appreciate it, because pretty much, like, if you ask anybody, I don't know, under the age of 30, certainly, maybe even a little bit older, like, who are their favorite players all time? I would think like 80 to 90% of those people are going to say one of the two of LeBron or Steph, right? Like, these have been the two guys of this generation. Absolutely, they have. And so that appeal is there. And then, like, LeBron's the same age as me. Like, I remember LeBron going up, and like, I started college when he should have started college, and all of these things. So when I think about like the things he's still able to do in the career he's had, and Steph's just a little bit under that, like, I feel nostalgic about it now. I think certainly we will, in retrospect, 5-10 years from now, depending on how long these guys play. So it's good. Like, this is going to be the series to watch. And I'm not saying, again, I put money on the Warriors. I'm not even saying like the winner of this series is going to win the title. I don't think that I believe that, but I think it'll be the series to watch, because I think what we'll see is LeBron and Steph feed off of each other. We're going to, I would imagine at points in this series, see Klay Thompson and Anthony Davis remind us why they're borderline, Hall of Fame caliber players. I'm not saying I think they should get in or will be in or anything like that, but just like their ability. And it's going to add to the intrigue. And, which night does which guy show up? Can LeBron and Steph, can they go 7 games of that high intensity still at this portion of their career? I don't know, but I cannot wait to find out. I mean, I love it. It's to me, again, I'm not saying I think this is going to be the series that produces the NBA champion. I think it could be, but I think of the series that are all probably going to be really good, this is the one with the most intrigue. And it's star power. And the NBA has always been about star power. And it is right now. And despite all the other stars playing and all the other games that are going on right now, and there are a ton of them, this is the one that we're all going to have our eyes on, right? LeBron and Steph. I mean, say what you want. You can admit it or not, but it's the one you're going to be paying attention to.
And isn't it great that we're in a scenario right now with the teams that are remaining where, like you mentioned, any one of them conceivably could win the NBA title?
Absolutely.
I think that's been my biggest gripe with the NBA in the playoffs, at least for a long time, is that for a while, it was a foregone conclusion who was going to win the championship year in and year out. Like, you knew it was going to be the Warriors, right? Like, they had that dynasty forever. And, Brooklyn tried to replicate it. There were teams that were trying to do what the Warriors did. They couldn't do it because it's kind of a once in a lifetime, situation where you have that dynasty stay together for as long as they did. It was a foregone conclusion. Now you've got kind of a wide open situation where there are a lot of teams out there, that could potentially go all the way. I don't know if I think the Nuggets could go all the way, but man, they're fun to watch with Jokic and Christian Brown, and they're fun. The Knicks and Heat storyline is fun. Like, there are some fun storylines there where really any team could conceivably come in and win a championship.
Well, we had a lot of Lakers, a lot of Spurs, and a lot of Warriors, right? And, those weren't always like no doubt about it, but a lot of them were.
You pretty much knew. You pretty much had a good idea.
The only flaw in the Warriors' armor was Cleveland. And then Durant got there and it was like, nobody's going to beat these teams. And then until the injury happened, and then we got the cool Toronto storyline. But the last 3 years, Tommy, like Lakers in the COVID year, then the Bucks, and then the Warriors last year, like, it's been unpredictable for a handful of years now, and it's continuing. I love that. The super team thing isn't working anymore. Like, it's not working for teams. Like, it doesn't, you got to have star power, but the collection of trying to just take random superstars and plop them in together is gone. And that's good for basketball. So I'm looking forward to it. That series won't start because they just, played yesterday's, but tonight you get 76ers and Celtics in game 1. All bets are off, I think, in that series. And then you get Suns Nuggets again. And look, I think Kevin Durant and the Suns have got to feel a little bit of desperation here with the Nuggets. I know the Nuggets are 1 seed at home, but I mean, the Nuggets are better than people are giving them credit for, and they've been here before. So that feels a little bit desperate for Phoenix, but I think that will also be a really good series. So that's what's up there tonight. Let's give away our other prize here today as we go into break. Then we'll come back and talk a little bit more about the NFL draft. You've got the Win Surge, and you can get vouchers. We'll give away a 4-pack. The cool thing about the vouchers is you get to just sort of pick the game you want to go to. So we've got those. We'll give them away. 869-1240. You can get that 4-pack of vouchers to a Win Surge game of your choice, courtesy of Sports Daily and KFH. Tommy and I will be back. More Sports Daily right after this. All right, welcome back, everybody. Sports Daily on KFH. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor here with you. Tommy, the NFL, before the draft, something we haven't had a lot of time to talk about in great detail. Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson gets his deal ultimately, and it played out, I think, while there was a lot of drama involved in it, it played out in a really kind of the way that it should have. You've got Jacob Albrocht and Tommy Castor here at Sports Daily. We'll get into Lamar Jackson now. IHOP hotline, if you want to chime in on that, by the way, 869-1240. I think that when the dust settles on this was all like a very natural way for this to go, right? Lamar wanted the Deshaun Watson deal. The market said no, right? Very quickly and very clearly said no. Lamar was like, all right, well, then just trade me. Like, this isn't going to work. The Jalen Hurts deal gets done, furthering the Ravens case of like, the market is not there, Lamar. Like, that's not the market. That's an outlier. And then so when the Jalen Hurts deal gets done, Lamar comes back and I think gets like 1% more or something guaranteed than Hurts got in a very similar deal. So he just slightly outdoes it. And I want to say, like, probably a pretty big shout out to both parties here, because the Ravens could have overreacted to Lamar trying to play the market and obviously having his feelings hurt. It was almost like they were like, we get it. Like, we love Lamar. We get where and why he's feeling this way. And we're just going to continue with our plan of him being our quarterback. And they let this all play out. They let Lamar test the waters. They let all of these things happen. And then when Lamar learned, like, that's not where it is, they were absolutely right there ready for him to return. And on Lamar Jackson's side of it, he was willing to just basically swallow his pride and say, you know what, this is the best spot for me, and I'm going to come back. And I think that, like, all things considered and all the drama, both sides deserve a little bit of credit for doing the deal that has always made the most sense. Like, it's always made the most sense for Lamar Jackson to stay with the Ravens. The deal gets done. He becomes the top guy. The Ravens are able to relatively peacefully establish that that's not the market. Deshaun Watson's not the market, and we get the deal done. And I think it's good for football.
You're giving both sides way too much credit, I think. I don't think either side really deserves much credit at all. This was the only choice. It was so I'm not going to give them credit for making the only choice. Lamar Jackson wasn't going anywhere else. Nobody else was willing to sign him for what he wanted. Nobody else was willing to trade for him for what the Ravens wanted. And, so I think that you've got two sides here that were at a stalemate for a long time. Neither side was willing to budge. Lamar Jackson didn't have an agent and was very, very adamant about what he thought that he deserved. And the Ravens were very, very adamant that they weren't going to pay that. I get that. I get both sides of the positions that they were on. But you had this stalemate where finally, a few hours before the draft, I think both sides were like, well, I guess this is really the only option. I mean, the only other option for Lamar Jackson would have been for him to set out this coming season. And that wasn't going to happen, right? So I'm not willing to give them credit for that, because the only other option is worse. The only other option is sit out for the year, and that doesn't do either side any good. So they just did what really was the common sense move and should have been done a long time ago.
But that other option totally existed, though. Right? Like, it absolutely existed. That was another option. That was a much worse case scenario. And even when they were both dug in so hard, the fact that it didn't have to get to that point is where I think they deserve credit. Just look at the Packers and Aaron Rodgers. You got drama over who wouldn't answer whose phone call, and everybody's feelings.
Stupid.
Everybody's feelings were hurt, right? Like, everybody had hurt feelings and scorn and all of these things in that regard. With the Ravens and Lamar, and hang with us, Mark, on the IHOP hotline. We'll get to you in just a second. With all that happened, both sides were able to be like, you know what, Lamar, we still love you. We've been saying that from the beginning. And Lamar to say, basically to say, I was wrong, right? He still got to be the top guy, but he didn't get what he wanted. And they were able to figure it out. Like that, I think they do deserve credit, because we see too often in the NFL feelings do get hurt and sides dig in and they light it up and just torch things. And I think a holdout was very a real possibility. Let's go to Mark on the IHOP hotline. Mark, what's on your mind? Welcome into Sports Daily.
Good morning, guys. I think the Ravens folded a little bit. I'm glad he ended up going back to the Ravens, but I think they folded a little bit because, I mean, when I look at Lamar and Jalen Hurts, who would you rather have?
Me personally, I'd rather have Lamar.
Yeah. Really? Over Hurts?
Yeah.
Well, okay, fair enough. But, I mean, I think what these guys, when they angle these big money deals for the quarterbacks, it's going to take them a long time to figure out what Brady figured out a long time ago. And even now, Mahomes, to a certain extent, forgo some of the money, keep the talent good around you, be okay with being the face of the team, and the money will come from different places, endorsements or sports deals or whatever. And I just think these guys that are landing these mega bucks contracts are going to feel the effects of that. Of course, they may not care. They got their money in the bank. I get that. But I think their team is going to suffer as a result of that. I'll hang up and listen to your answer. Thanks for taking my call.
I'm with you, Mark. I mean, I agree with you. I mean, I think that like in that situation between Lamar Jackson and Jalen Hurts, I think I'd rather have Jalen Hurts right now, right this second, only because at least Jalen Hurts is taking his team to a Super Bowl. Lamar Jackson hasn't done that yet. And again, he's won an MVP. He's a great talent. You know, he has all of these physical attributes, but he hasn't taken his team to that next level. And Jalen Hurts
right, because he has to go through the AFC, though. That's not fair either, because he's had, look at what's been in the AFC in his way. Jalen Hurts' season last year was fantastic. I love Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is far better, than I thought he would be as a pro. And even despite the fact that he plays for the Eagles, I hope he stays that way. But I think sometimes, because Lamar Jackson's missed a little bit of time, not a ton of time, by the way, in the last 2 years. He's missed 4 games in each of the 2 years. But I think people sometimes forget how incredible he has been in his career. Not just the MVP season, which was obviously incredible, but as a runner, he's a little bit better of a runner than Hurts. Is he as good a passer? Hurts really impressed me with his passing last year, but we've just seen it from Lamar for more years, and they're basically the same age, right? If Hurts continues it, then obviously that's one thing. But we've seen this from Lamar outside of the games that he's missed in the last couple of years. That's what he's been forever. He's proven, man. Like he is who he is. And by the way, he's dealt with a lot of injuries, not just with himself, but think about some of these Ravens teams and all the running backs that they've had injured. And like they've dealt with a lot of adversity within seasons, and he still gives them a chance. What I think about Lamar when I say I'd rather have him is through what we've seen in their careers so far. I think Lamar Jackson is far more capable of shouldering the load on his own if need be. We haven't seen that from Jalen Hurts. Everything went perfectly for the Eagles last year. Everybody was healthy all year. Everything worked out. It was a great, perfect season for them. Let's see if he can keep doing it. And maybe he can. And if he does it for 2 or 3 more years, my opinion may change. But right now, Lamar Jackson has done it over a long period of time. And he's done it at a young age. And, there is upside still in his game. The one thing, again, but you can't say that you're worried about Lamar slowing down. He's like a year older than Hurts.
I'm not worried about Lamar slowing down. I'm not worried about declining physical attributes at all from Lamar Jackson. My only thing is that if you're judging it, and I think I am, and I think you have to view it through this lens of taking a team all the way, Jalen Hurts has done that, and Lamar Jackson has not. And Lamar Jackson has had more opportunities to do so. Yeah, it's a more difficult conference. There's no doubt about that. The quarterbacks that he's got to play against in that conference with Mahomes and Allen and Burrow and Herbert, I get it. Now Rodgers, like I understand all of that. But man, like the window of opportunity for, quarterbacks, and especially mobile quarterbacks like Lamar Jackson, it's a little bit shorter, you would think, than the window of opportunity for more traditional quarterbacks. And so I'm not saying
both
old,
but they both fit that mold, right? Like they're both that mold.
Yeah. Right.
So Lamar Jackson has a higher career passer rating. Lamar Jackson has an MVP. And Jalen Hurts was real close to getting an MVP last year. He was right there in the conversation. But again, Super Bowls are not all equitable to like the quarterback's impact. I've got to try to separate it because I think Lamar Jackson's had a tougher road.
Guaranteed money is. And so I know that, of course, like Deshaun Watson is an outlier. That contract was ridiculous, and we've talked about that for a long time.
And
but
he's not as good as either one of these guys either,
right.
By the way.
The major sticking point for Lamar this entire time was guaranteed money, right? Like that was the number one reason why Lamar Jackson was unhappy with the Ravens was the lack of guaranteed money. And he thought he deserved more. Okay, win a Super Bowl and you'll get more guaranteed money. Get them all the way. You'll get more guaranteed money.
Maybe.
Right? Like you would think, right? I mean,
he got there. Again, this is why back to the original point of I think both sides deserve a lot of credit. It's because Lamar wanted that, wasn't going to get that, and was still willing to say, you know what? I was wrong. Let's get a deal done. That doesn't always happen. And I think that, and when I say deserves credit, like it deserves credit because now we get to have Lamar Jackson not sit out a year, and the Ravens don't have to go through this like awkward rebuilding. And like, think about how often that we listened to Deshaun Watson want out of Houston for what, 2 years? We've dealt with this Aaron Rodgers drama for like 5 years. It feels like.
I am not willing to give Lamar Jackson or the Ravens a ton of credit for getting this done, because basically what you're doing, what you're saying is you're willing to give them a lot of credit for not doing something stupid that they shouldn't have done in the first place, right?
But that happens all the time in the NFL.
They don't deserve credit for that. Like they did what they should have been doing all along. They got a deal done that should have been done months ago. They don't deserve credit for that. They got the only common sense deal done that they should have gotten done, and they did. So good for them, but I'm not willing to like throw them a parade in honor of getting a deal with Lamar Jackson.
Throw them a parade. I said give them credit for doing what they should have done. It's exactly what I said. They deserve credit for doing, because it happens all the time that teams don't do what should have been done. And then you have a mess on both sides. And so like this one, there was a moment there where this one felt like it was going to go sideways like that. It did. And Mark, and we appreciate the call, Mark, thinks that the Ravens caved a little bit. I don't think the Ravens caved at all. Lamar Jackson caved. Lamar Jackson wanted the guaranteed money fully. Again, that's what we perceive, right? He never outwardly said that, but he didn't get it. And so the Ravens, again, and, I think John Harbaugh deserves definitely credit because he continuously said absolutely the right things. And it was just like, nope, we expect him to be our quarterback and we want him to be here, right? Even though that was probably not the, behind the scenes was probably not his sentiment. They kept that, because now what happens is you get the deal done. And I don't feel like, as dramatic as that I think probably was, it doesn't feel like now there's any animosity, right? Like I don't worry about that lingering or anything like that. Like it's just, okay, we're there. We're there where we should have been. Yes, but we got where we should have been. And it could have been way worse than that. And the Ravens now extend a window, and they went out and they drafted aggressively for him. And they've been aggressive. They go out and they get Odell Beckham Jr., right? And, they're doing all of these things to surround, and we knew it, right? We knew when they signed Odell Beckham Jr. that it was like, he's going to come back here. Like the Ravens are sort of pushing him in, saying he's going to be back here. So they go get Zay Flowers, right? So now they've added 2 wide receivers and 2 pretty dynamic, different wide receivers to go with that offense, that if it could ever get healthy at running back, like the Ravens are absolutely a contender now again. And I'm just glad for it, because I really enjoy watching Lamar Jackson play football. And I'm glad that we get to continue to watch him play football in what I think, no matter what, is the best place for him to succeed. They are changing offensive coordinators, which will be interesting to watch. But we'll get the best version of Lamar in Baltimore, and the best version of Lamar is awesome for football.
I'm glad. And I guess one area where I am willing to give them a little bit of credit is I'm glad that they got it done before the draft.
They had to.
Right. But there was a scenario where they wouldn't have,
it's
right?
It's going to be a mess, though, if
they would have went through that draft not knowing who their quarterback was, and would they have drafted a quarterback early? I have no idea. But then you've got all this drama where Lamar still doesn't have a team, and now there might be another quarterback coming in that the Ravens felt like they had to draft. Like, there would have been a lot of drama had that not gotten done before the draft. So I am willing. It should have been done a long time ago, but at least I am willing that they got it done. Maybe it was like, I think it was announced 2 hours before the draft was scheduled to kick off. I'm glad they got it done before then. So I'm willing to give them a little bit of credit for that.
Boy, I watched that one and the Rodgers one at the same time. And now the drama, and it's not, Rodgers isn't inviting it. The media is when they ask him questions, but he absolutely deserves the questions because he keeps fueling it, because I think he just likes messing with people. But, like the who answered the phone stuff, and like, that's ridiculous. That's unnecessary. That's all of those things. I didn't think anything about Ravens Jackson negotiations were ever ridiculous. I didn't think any of them were ever unnecessary. I thought it was very logical
was that
what both
moment.
sides
Don't
wanted.
forget, there was that time that Jackson, I think, tweeted
He wanted
and
to
was
trade.
upset. And it was right before the winter meetings, I think, happened. And so, of course, poor John Harbaugh was bombarded with media like 30 seconds after Jackson
And he's a rock star.
tweeted that. It was his availability. Like, there was a little bit of drama. Let's not forget about that.
No, I'm not saying there wasn't drama. Sorry. I think that there was more. It was more professional drama because Lamar at that time was trying to leverage, right? Like, he did that to try to leverage the Ravens to do something. Because at that time, he probably thought there were other teams that would give him that kind of contract. I think it's once he learned, that teams were not willing to give him a guarantee, or anybody, quite frankly, a guaranteed deal like that, that had to have been the point where you're like, huh. But it was really the Hurts deal, right? It was like, because we know what happens with NFL quarterbacks, right? The market resets and the market resets and the market resets, and it will again now with Burrow and, and Herbert and all these guys. But it was when the Hurts deal got done, and you can clearly see the market is telling you, for a very comparable player with a very comparable trajectory and career so far, that this is what the market is. You've got to take Deshaun Watson and throw it out the window. And I think that was the point where Lamar was willing and able to say, damn, I was wrong. Let's give me one more dollar than Jalen Hurts and we'll get this deal done. And they did, and it's fine. And he's a Raven, which is good for football. And I'm glad that happened. I don't know what they would have done. I don't know what they would have done if it didn't get done before the draft. My gut says with that team and that franchise, they probably would have just rolled with like Huntley and gone that way this year. I don't know that they would have gone out and got anybody.
I think they would have, because that again would have put a little bit more pressure on Lamar. Like, that's negotiating.
Yeah,
tactic,
sorry.
right?
I mean like go spend a first round pick and go get one of the top guys.
Yeah.
Who did you think had the best draft?
Man, I think at the very top, the Texans, clearly, right? I mean, how aggressive they were at the beginning.
I think they traded Stroud too much to get Anderson.
And then
I can't give them that. Yeah, I
but
thought they gave up
But
too
the
much.
fact that they've got like two cornerstones on both sides of the ball now, potentially, like, and this is a team that, don't forget, and this was a big point of conversation on the different networks, during the draft, how close the Texans were to competing last season. Like, they took Kansas City to overtime, right? Remember that?
Yep.
Remember we talked about it after that game.
Yeah,
like,
if Stroud's good, it's
right?
weird because if Stroud's good, the Anderson pick is a home run.
Yeah.
But if Stroud's not good, they're going to regret giving up that draft capital. That's an interesting one. I mean, I sit here and still shake my head at, like, how in the world did football let the Eagles get Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith?
Yeah,
how
they had a great draft too.
How did football let that happen? I don't even know about the rest of their draft. I just imagine
they're all
those
from Georgia.
Guys,
they basically drafted every player from Georgia.
Good luck with that pass rush, everybody. You can't let that happen. Like, you're going to hold the Chiefs back from adding a wide receiver weapon. How do you not hold the Eagles back? Like, let's get some collusion here. You can't let them have that many pass rushers. 869-1240. We'll continue to roll forward on Sports Daily. Congratulations to Herb and Corey for winning our giveaways today. We'll do more of that throughout the week here. Glad to be here with you. 869-1240 is the IHOP hotline. Tommy and I are also on the air here on a video stream you can find on the KFH Facebook page, KFH YouTube page, and Sports Daily Twitter page. We'll be back Last full segment of Sports Daily coming right up.
to get back to the sports talk.
All right, let's do this thing. Go!
Sports Daily is on KFH.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Glad to have you here. It is Sports Daily. It's Jacob Albracht and Tommy Castor. We are back with you on the air. IHOP hotline open, 869-1240 for our last segment here before we get you the What's on Tap in our next segment. And you can find us on our video stream, Facebook, KFH, YouTube, KFH, Twitter, Sports Daily page. Glad to be here. We've got, I've upgraded a little bit, Tommy, here to the room. The visuals behind, it's been a slow work in progress. I've decided to go with a kids art motif and some of the projects for the kids that they've done. We still got Macho Man back there, but I'm working on it. It's coming along a little nicely. Yours probably a little more organized than mine is, but it is what it is. You put me in charge of decorating. This is kind of what you get. It's going to feel like a college dorm room.
Right. I'm in my office. Like I'm actually at work. Like I'm not at home. And my home office would look a lot more similar to yours, I think, a little bit. I do have to point out, though, that I like the change, because I know at one point you were talking about like shadow boxes and like things like that on the wall. I like just the drawings from your kids. Now, I'm assuming those are your kids, and those aren't your drawings, right?
Oh, I'm not that good at art. No, these are little paintings they've done, and I'll try and, rotate some of those in and out. But, I'm just going to put a bunch of memorabilia up, and I don't know how to make that look good. And I don't know. Like, I don't know how much people care about that stuff anyway. So I just went with like, you can see a picture that's my grandpa in the military. There's a Shocker basketball that was at a giveaway one time that I randomly won. That was kind of fun. That's about as sportsy as I get here. And then you got Macho Man and a few paintings from the kids, and, my big extended family picture. It's not like you can really see all that stuff anyway. It's just sort of in the background. I don't know if you can see it. So behind me is this thing here, and I've got, like, we talked about video games earlier. I've got like a Sega Dreamcast and a Sega Saturn, like these retro games that they're just there. Like, they're not even hooked up to a TV right now. But that it just so happened to be what was in the piece of furniture that I moved behind me. It really is like I'm in a college dorm room right now.
It works, though. I mean, I like that aesthetic. I like that motif. I don't even know if those are the right words to use, but I'm making them up as I go along. I've got on the bookshelf behind me, I don't know if you can see, I've got like the Wichita flag, some pictures of my dogs, family. And then I have right there the World's Best Boss coffee mug from The Office that I did not buy myself. I'm not Michael Scott. I didn't buy it. I didn't buy it myself. It was gifted to me, but I am a big fanatic of the TV show The Office, and so I've got that coffee mug right behind me.
The Office is great. I love The Office. I'm on a Modern Family rewatch right now, by the way. That's what I've been like watching on TV. When I watch that show, I always, for me, it was like Seinfeld 1, and then it's always slotted right in there with like that in The Office, honestly. And as I'm rewatching it, my God, it's good. Like, it is so perfect. Like, it is like those great shows just like reach perfection in what they're trying to do. And it's perfect. And it's amazing. Just like The Office was, just like Seinfeld was. It's right there.
I'm right there with you on 2 of the 3. I love Seinfeld. I love The Office. I like Modern Family, but I can't say I love Modern Family. I've never sat and watched the entire series, and if it's on, I'll watch it. This is going to sound really, maybe I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to go ahead and say it anyway. This is going to be bad. I'm kind of out on Eric Stone Street a little bit. Like, and I like Eric Stone Street. I'm a little Eric Stone Streeted out. Like, I feel like everywhere I turn, there he is. If there's a
that's
K-State
because you're
thing,
following
there he
Kansas
is.
City teams.
If there's a Chiefs thing, there he is. Like, and I like him, and he's funny. He's hilarious. He was great in Modern Family. I could just use a little bit of a break from Eric Stone Street, just a little bit. Like, I don't every time I turn around, I don't want to see him, and that's kind of where it is right now.
Well, you're wrong.
Okay.
You know, that's I need you now, as you've become a dad, to go watch some Modern Family. And I think not just for Phil Dunphy, who's like the greatest stereotype dad of all time, but all the dads in that show, whether it's Eric Stone Street as a dad, whether it's Ed O'Neill, Al Bundy, right, as a dad, or all of them, literally all of them. And like, it's like this appreciation of the different ways to dad it up that I can't. Not very many things actually make me laugh out loud. I'm not an out loud laugher, like a quiet laugher. I get a hard time from my wife about that. She's like, "What's happening? What is that over there?" I'm like, "Well, I'm laughing." That show makes me laugh out loud. And so did The Office, and so did Seinfeld. And that's probably what elevates them to that stratosphere. Like, there are a lot of shows that I think are funny, but aren't making me actually like laugh genuinely out loud. All right, 869-1240. We're going to tell you what's on tap the rest of the day here on the network for us on KFH. Some good stuff coming, exciting stuff coming. If you're a Wichita State fan, we'll do that next. All right, everybody, that does it for us on a Monday. Jim Rome right after this, Bob and Jeff at 2, Maggie and Perloff at 4 before Zach Gelb. You've got him for an hour. We've got the Lauren Hibbs Show right here on KFH talking Wichita State baseball at 6. You've got the Christy Breadbinner Show right here on KFH following that at 7 to talk Wichita State softball. Again, we will have Sydney McKinney, the all-world shortstop for the Shockers, coming onto the program tomorrow. Looking forward to that. We'll have a Wichita Sports Hall of Fame induction as well. For Tommy and Jad, I'm Jacob. We'll see you Tuesday.
Sports, later news, and